Welcome to the final part of my Creative Compass tour, where I walk you through the Notion template I created to help you balance play and productivity. In the first two videos, I showed how the action point system helps you become more aware of where your energy is going, and how the template reduces decision paralysis so you can spend more time being creative and doing the things you enjoy. In this final part, we're going to look at the professional area of the Creative Compass and how it supports your work as a creative professional, whether that's content creation, client work, or ongoing projects. So if I scroll down here on the dashboard, we'll see here the last area is the professional work area. And we have 4 different sections, one for our brands and channels, content creation, products and services, and client work. So I'll open up the brands and channels section. As you can see here, we have an overview of our brands and as well as any channels related to them. So a brand in the Creative Compass is basically any creative identity or business entity you manage. So you could be, for example, an influencer, so you have your personal brand, and then maybe there's a project you worked on that has now become its own business, so it's become its own beast. You can keep track of both of them in the Creative Compass, so you're not limited to managing just one creative business. And then channels in the Creative Compass are basically any platform or outlet where you share or sell your creative work. So that could be a YouTube channel, a social media platform. It could be your newsletter, a blog. It could be a sales channel, for example, if you're on Gumroad or Etsy. So these are all different types of channels, and they can all be connected to a brand. I'll open up the Wundersart brand page so you can see what kind of information you collect. So you can write a description, you can write its brand purpose, core values, brand position differentiation, the audience, and then here you have space to collect your brand kit. So if I open that up, you'll see here I have my typography that I've chosen for the brand, here my color palette, also any logos. If I had, but I currently don't, I can also collect graphics, designs, maybe it's a thumbnail design I always want to use, or any sort of design I can collect there. And then I also have a space to have a mood board for my brand if I want to, and I can also make notes about my visual identity here. Then here, if I open up this tab, I'll see any channels that are related to this brand, as well as a short description and a link if relevant. And also any inactive channels are checked away there. I can also see any content that I'm currently working on in relation to this brand. So if I open this up, you'll see this particular type of page opens up in wide view, so in full width. And if I had any ideas, then they'd be listed here. Here are all the things I might have planned for the brand. So in this case, these are videos, a newsletter. So here I can see the content type. I can write a description. Here's my done date, as in the date that it needs to be released, published, and then my due date, as in the date where I want to have the things made or created, or maybe a significant step. And then I can also scroll and see there's a time frame and maybe any content pursuits related to that particular piece of content. And then also here I have a create this month view. So these are similar to, I think in part 1, I touched on this in the calendar section. You also have a view like this, but it's a weekly view. In this case, this is a monthly view of content that I want to create this month. So it's sorted by the due date, as in the date I want to actually create this. In the due this month, that's in the sense of the deadline, the release date. I can see that here as well. Here's any content that I might have scrapped, and here's any content that is finished. So here I have a nice overview of that. I also here have the option to schedule any due dates or done dates for content. So any content that doesn't have the status backlog will be listed here if it doesn't yet have a due date. Same here, any content that doesn't have a done date will be listed here. And then to plan that in, I can just go to the Create This Month tab, and then I can drag and drop those items into the calendar as needed. So for example, I'll just remove the due date for this piece of content, and you'll see it'll appear now in this view. And then to plan it, so when I actually want to do it, I can just drag it into the calendar, and now it has a due date. And the same goes for done dates. If this didn't have a deadline date yet, then it would be here, and I can drag it into the due this month calendar to plan it. And so that's the content section. And then we have our resources section, where I can just collect any resources that are relevant to this brand, any inspiration. And then also here, if I open this up, here are any products and services that are related to the brand. A product can be a license. For example, maybe I'm doing art licensing, It could be a brand deal. Maybe I'm doing sponsorships with brands and promoting brands. Maybe I offer art commissions. So here are the different types of products you can have. And then here is another like subcategory that I can choose or create. And then I can also have a status for that product. I can also collect services that I offer. So maybe I offer brand promotion as a service for companies. And here are the different service options I offer. A service option is also technically a product, but it's a product that you offer within an overall service. So here, for example, I have different service options for brand promotion, and I have different service options for art commissions. Perhaps I offer a Patreon subscription, then I can keep track of that here as well. So the different tiers that I offer and at what price. And then I also have views, for any products that are upcoming, discontinued, and then all products. I can also nest products within each other. So for example, I've just now whipped up these 3 products. So this one being the actual collection, and these 2 here being the products that will be within that collection. So I can just click on themed collection and I can link those sub-products that I just now created. So the sticker sheet and the second sticker sheet. This is basically the collection container, and then these are the sub-products. If I close this, I can also see that these are part of the collection. And so if you work with collections, this is a way you can organize them. You can also create additional views where products are organized by collection. You can group them in different ways. In my main products and services view here, for example, I have them grouped by brand, but you can group it any way you'd like. And I actually just now noticed that my brand Wundersart doesn't have its icon. So you can leave this default icon if you wish, but you can also upload an image and then it'll have the actual icon of your brand. So I'll just do that real quick and voila, there we go. And I find that quite neat because everywhere else where the brand is mentioned in the template, you'll see the little icon next to it, and it just makes it a little bit more personal. And so that is basically the brand page. So coming back to the overview, we also have the content creation section. So if I open that up, it might feel familiar. It's basically the same section we had within our brands page, and you'll also find it in the channels page. But this is just an overview of your content across all brands and across all channels. Channels and the content that belong to each channel are saved in the same database. When you create a new page, so let's just open this up, you'll see that you have the option to apply different templates. So if this were a new channel, you would select the channel template, then it would apply the channel related content to the page. A channel usually only has the status backlog, planned, continuous, or scrapped. For example, it doesn't usually have a time frame. And if I open up this section here, you'll see it is the content type channel. Whereas if I close this and let's just delete this, and you'll see alternatively, we have content templates that we can choose from. We have up to 6 different options. So it could be newsletter content, a video, an article, a post, like a social media post, a short video clip, or a video broadcast. So like maybe you do live streaming. And depending on what you select, the page might be slightly different. But let's say, for example, you're planning a video. Then this is what the page will look like when you apply that. And it will also apply the social category and the long form content type to the page. Now in this case, channel was already applied, so it didn't reset that. But normally if this were a fresh record and I hadn't applied the channel type first, it would have applied the long form. And then you have the option to change the title. In this case, you probably would have a time frame that you're planning for that piece of content. And in that case, it would be relevant to link it to a channel. So in this case, maybe it's to my Wundersart channel. In that case, it wouldn't be part of my Yelamiko brand. It would be associated with my Wundersart brand. And then maybe this is content I have planned for the next quarter. And so that's how you can set up content. As you can see, as I connected the channel YouTube to this page, it auto-populated these different activities. Content automatically inherits the activities you have associated with a channel, and this makes it so that you don't have to create a bunch of activities over and over again that are the same anyway. So I assume if you're creating a video for your YouTube channel, it will have the same activities, like you're doing the same things over and over again. And so instead of creating the activities individual for each piece of content, you have the activities set up already for your YouTube channel. So if I just open the channel up, you'll see these are activities that are related to the channel, and they will be automatically inherited by any pieces of content that I create for this channel. Going back to the overview, so that is the content creation pipeline. And then we have the products and services section, similar to kind of what we already went through in the brand page. So we have the different tabs, is all the same as before. We have this case, the digital and physical products organized by brand, but you can also organize them by collection and whatnot. If I wanted to organize them by collection, I would just go over the settings here, go to group. Instead of brand, I would select parent product. And then here you see I have a bunch of products that have no parent product, and then I have here the products part of this themed collection. And then the next section is client work. This is where I can manage any commissions that are incoming, any maybe brand promotions I have agreed upon with another company. This is also where I can manage any clients that I have saved. So a client is essentially a person or a company you work with professionally. And so here I have a button where I can open up my client database and I can reference the clients I've saved so far. So if I just open up actually the client record page, you can see here it can have a status, it can be a company or a person type, and it can have a category. Here I have details such as I can save a description, I can have notes, I can have a name for the contact, their position. So depending on if this is a person or company, you might not need all these details, but I can also keep track of when I had last contact with them. For the follow-up property, it's set to remind you on that date once it comes up. And then maybe there's a pay structure I have agreed with this company so that they pay me in a certain amount of time after I've delivered. Here I can see any products that I've booked with them. So in the specific service options that they have hired me for, also maybe any related pursuits. Here I can see the payment history, so the total amount of money that has been booked with them, the money that is pending payment, not necessarily overdue, but it's pending payment because, the payment date is in the future. And this here is the amount of payments that are actually overdue. And they haven't paid me anything yet, so that's a big baddie. So maybe this isn't such a great company after all, but I can also give them a tag, and I can also upload any files related to this company. And of course, I have the full record page down below from Notion that I can also use to fill in any details. And then here I have a tab where I can look up the assignment history. So here I can see that we have a promotion campaign upcoming that's currently in production. And then we have here a brand deal, an assignment of some sorts. Maybe it was a YouTube video ad segment that I have delivered, and the payment's overdue. So I can see that here. So I find that quite handy. So that's how you can keep track of your clients in this system. And here as well, we have a little overview of any clients that I need to follow up on. Here we have an overview of the actual assignments that I'm working on for a client. So that could be a project, that could be content that I need to deliver, that can be a commission. And so here you see the current ones where the content isn't on hold or it's not an inquiry, it's something that I'm actually actively working on. And I can see here the name of the client, the status, the time frame, and also what kind of assignment it is. Here I have a calendar where I have an overview of the different campaigns. Then I have my pipeline. So this is basically a Kanban board, an overview of the different assignments and where they stand with their current status. I can, of course, also open this in a larger view so I can have a better overview, and I can drag and drop things as needed and move them about. I can also from here change something. I can change the type. Any incoming assignments I would be able to see here, and I actually made a tally form template for this, which I'll show you in a sec, that can automatically be connected to Notion so that any new assignments that come in, any new commissions, they'll automatically be added to your Creative Compass. And then we have also here any assignments that are on hold, any for which the payment is due, and then we'll have here any completed assignments. And so if I open up an assignment, so this one for example, we can see that it's associated with a brand, we have the type, the status, we can add any notes, and we can connect it to a service. And here we have activities that, again, similar to our relation with channels and content, this assignment automatically inherits the activities that are related to the art commission service. That way I don't have to create a bunch of activities from scratch for every single assignment that comes in, because again, I'll probably be doing the same activities every single time for an art commission. So that is what I can add here. But of course, if there are any custom activities, I can always create a new one here. I'll be able to distinguish the activities associated with the service that are being inherited or the ones associated with the actual assignment via this here. I can also collect resources and of course take notes on the page below. I can also here under this tab see any creations that I've made associated with that assignment. And then if I click this here, I'll have a space where I can add more details. So I can see when the inquiry was made, so when it was submitted, the assignment time frame. So this could be maybe just the deadline, or I can add an end date, and I can actually add a proper time period, a frame maybe through which I want to work on it. I can also associate a product with this assignment. So as I mentioned before, each service can have service options, which are essentially products, and I can associate them with the assignment here. And then I can add the total rate. So it could just be me manually taking the rate of the actual commission, or maybe I agreed upon a custom rate with the customer and I can add that here. And then here we have the customer details. When you use that tally form that I mentioned, that I'll show you in a sec, some details will automatically be filled in here. So for example, the name of the customer, the email, what they chose, which selection they chose for their submission option, so what they wanted to commission, any notes that the customer left, and any reference photos that they uploaded, any content, any media. Here I have payment details. So this is a field that's automatic based on the client, and based on that, then you know, okay, payment is due on a certain date, and then, okay, payment's overdue. If it's overdue, that'll show up. You can mark it as paid, and then that will go away. And so that's how you can manage an assignment and keep an overview of all the important details. Now I want to briefly explain the commission form template that I've created in Tally. Tally is a modern no-code online form builder that functions like a document editor. So it actually works kind of like Notion with different blocks. I've used it to set up a template that you can use to connect with Notion with your Creative Compass so that you can automatically receive submissions and have them automatically added to your Creative Compass in the Inquiries tab, to be specific. And so here you can customize, of course, the description and the name. You can collect basic information from your customers, so their name, their address, and whatnot. Here they can indicate whether it's a personal or commercial commission. Maybe you have different options, like let's say it's a standard art commission. You can offer a full body drawing, a portrait body, maybe just the bust. So you can add these options here. And when the customer selects those options, it'll show up in the assignment side panel view, as I mentioned just before. And then here you can collect any messages or notes from the customer about the commission that they're ordering. And then also they can upload any references. And so this is just a basic template that you can edit freely. It's pretty simple, but you can go on Tally to find any tutorials and documentation. You'll be able to integrate Notion with that form, and once you do, you can map the different properties of your survey to the different properties in your Notion template. And so here is basically just an overview of how you should map those properties from the survey I created to the properties that exist already in the Creative Compass. So you basically just have to copy this one-to-one in your own Tally account, and then you can start collecting commissions. Now you might be wondering, why am I not using Notion forms for this? Well, it turns out that the Tally app just has more features included for free in the free plan. For example, when somebody fills out the form and submits it, I get an email notification from Tally, where in Notion, you can only get that on the paid plan from Notion. I can also have pre-filled options such as the assignment type or name. For example, as you saw in the Notion template, I have, all sorts of different services I can offer, whether it's like a brand deal or a commission consultation. Well, if you're using a Notion form, you're not really able to distinguish between these options. The customer would just be able to select from all of those. That's a bit odd. If I'm creating a submission form for my art commissions, then I don't want them to be able to select consultation. That would be weird. Tally lets me just create custom options, and that's that. And so it's just better. It also looks a bit cleaner in my opinion. And there's also more flexibility. It also lets me pre-fill options like the submission date, which wouldn't be automatic with Notion. So the customer would have to actually fill in when they're filling out the form. And I feel like Tally just does it a lot smarter. So I filled the template in real quick with some mock information to show what it would look like when the customer submits information in the form. So if I go back to the Notion template, I'll see here, it's popped up here under Inquiries, Michelle Johnson. The assignment has been created. If I open that up, I'll just have to apply the assignment template because it's an assignment, not a new service I'm creating. Manually associate the brand. Let's say this is my Wundersart brand that I want this to be assigned to. Of course, it's an art commission, so I'll associate it to that. Then I can open up the side panel, see the information she added. So she selected option 1, and let's say in that case, that is the full figure commission type. And so I can add that there. And then I can, of course, move on to creating a client page for her and whatnot. But the most important details are already plugged in. I can get in touch with the customer and start working on the commission from there. So I think that wraps up the most important bits about the professional work area that you need to know. If you're curious for me to go more in depth on a particular part, or you have maybe a question, then feel free to send me a message or of course leave a comment below, and I'm happy to make more videos like this. If you want to get the template for yourself, then simply follow the link in the description below. Till next time, bye!